Have you ever wondered why some truths feel forbidden? Not by law, not by rules, but by silence. A silence that hums beneath the surface of every interaction. A silence that says, don't look too closely, don't ask too much. And yet, here you are. You've felt it, haven't you? The way certain conversations with women spiral, the way your words seem to mean less than your tone, your posture, your ability to hold yourself. The way approval can be given like sunlight and withdrawn like shade. Not out of cruelty, not always by design, but through instinct, through the quiet, unconscious strategies of emotional survival. You've been told that love is acceptance, that partnership is peace. But what if much of what you call connection is actually control? Arthur Schopenhauer once wrote, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone. He who does not love solitude will not love freedom, for only when he is alone is he truly free." There's something uncomfortable about that, because we want to belong, we want to be chosen, we want to matter to someone. But the cost? The cost is often hidden in plain sight. It begins when you shift yourself just slightly to avoid disapproval, when you soften your truth to keep peace, when your silence is not born of wisdom, but of fear. This is the first fracture, and it grows. You stop saying what you think. You stop doing what you love. You forget what it feels like to be rooted in yourself, because her approval now feels like oxygen, and your integrity, a luxury you can no longer afford. But why? Why does this happen again and again? Because emotional dependence creates a power imbalance. Because when you need someone's affection, they no longer owe it to you. And without knowing it, you become a servant to your own longing. This is the hidden mirror. What you think is love may actually be a reflection of your need to be seen. What feels like connection might just be a performance to avoid rejection. And what appears as harmony could be the quiet death of your self-respect. Women do not want you to find this mirror, not because they are malicious, but because this mirror changes everything. It reveals what no one wants to admit, that emotional leverage is real, that control is often masked as care, and that relationships without clarity become quiet negotiations of dominance. You are being shaped constantly by attention, by withdrawal, by praise, by silence. And unless you become aware of it, you will give away your power in tiny, polite pieces. Ask yourself, when was the last time you disagreed and didn't apologize for it? When did you last say no and stand by it? When did you last feel your own center, even in the face of someone else's disappointment? The man who fears rejection will always betray himself, and the man who cannot bear solitude will always trade his sovereignty for affection. That's the raw truth. That's what most never say, because this kind of self-possession is unsettling. It means facing your own emotional hunger. It means admitting that you've confused validation with love, and that maybe, just maybe, you've never actually been free in a relationship. But it also means something else. It means you're ready. Ready to stop performing, ready to stop bending, ready to stop hoping that peace will come from being more agreeable, more passive, more pleasing. Because peace, real peace, comes from knowing who you are and being willing to lose anything that asks you to forget it. Women may not want you to find this truth, because when you do, you become immune to manipulation. You become still in chaos. You become calm in confrontation. You become untouchable, not because you don't feel, but because you feel deeply without being owned by it. You no longer need to argue. You no longer need to prove. You no longer need to be understood to remain rooted. This is the beginning of emotional self-mastery. And it's lonely at first, because you start seeing what others don't. You start noticing how much of human interaction is a theater of wounds. You begin to ask dangerous questions like, do I want her, or do I just fear being alone? Do I love her, or am I addicted to the way she reflects my worth? These are not questions for the faint-hearted, but they are necessary, because until you face your own emotional cravings, you will always be someone else's puppet. So pause, breathe, feel the truth, not just with your mind, but with your body. You've felt the cost of living uncentered. You've tasted the bitterness of silent self-abandonment. You've worn the mask so well, even you forgot what your real face looks like. But now, you're standing at the edge of the mirror, and you're beginning to see. This video was never about women. It was about the part of you that gave away your soul for a smile, for warmth, for peace. But now you know. Peace is not something you're given, it's something you choose. When you stop trading pieces of yourself to feel wanted, what if the very thing you crave is the very thing that controls you? Not with force, not with threats, but with something softer, something deeper. Need. The moment you need someone, you hand them a quiet form of power. It begins in small ways. You wait for a reply with anxious breath. You alter your words to avoid upsetting her. You smile when you don't feel like smiling, because tension feels dangerous. And slowly, without meaning to, you become a shape molded by another's reaction. Is that love? Or is it fear dressed in tenderness? Let's be honest with ourselves. Much of what we call connection is a transaction, an unconscious trade of safety for sovereignty. You give up your voice to keep her warmth. You shrink your truth to maintain the peace. You tolerate the misalignment because the thought of being alone feels worse than the pain of losing yourself. But here's the thing. People sense when you are dependent. And whether they mean to or not, they will test that dependency. It's not cruelty, it's instinct. Human beings test for strength. They test for boundaries. They test to see where the center is, if one exists at all. A woman may test you not because she wants to hurt you, but because something in her psyche wants to feel the gravity of your truth. She wants to know, can this man hold his own, even when I withdraw? Will he bend himself just to keep my love? Does he know who he is, even when I don't approve? Most men fail this test, not because they are weak, but because they are unaware. They don't know they're being tested. They don't see the game. They only feel the threat of distance and rush to close the gap with gifts, praise, apologies, silence, anything. But here's the paradox. The more you chase, the more you lose. What you seek approval from begins to control you. And so, the dance begins. Step by step, you move away from your center, away from your clarity, away from your integrity. You become emotionally entangled, not through her power, but through your need. Arthur Schopenhauer once observed, "To desire immortality is to desire the perpetuation of a great mistake." The same could be said of emotional dependency. To desire constant approval, to desire unbroken intimacy, to desire peace at all costs, is to live inside a quiet mistake. You are not here to be pleasing. You are not here to be tolerated. You are not here to be reshaped by others' moods. You are here to live from your inner ground, to speak when it matters, to hold when it's right, to walk away when your soul begins to fracture. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. But clarity scares people. Because when a man is clear, he cannot be steered with guilt. He cannot be manipulated with silence. He cannot be moved by threats of absence. He becomes the mountain, unchanged by the weather around him. This is what self-mastery looks like. Not suppressing your feelings, but not being ruled by them either. You feel the pull of need and choose not to follow it. You notice the desire to please and stay still instead. You witness the old pattern rising and lovingly interrupt it. This is power, not over others, but over the chaos within yourself. Because what you do not master in yourself, others will master for you. Look back, honestly, how many times have you let someone cross your boundaries just to keep a false sense of peace? How many times have you felt something was off but stayed anyway? Because it might get better? How many times have you said yes when your soul whispered no? These are not small betrayals. They are cumulative fractures, and they teach others how to treat you. You want respect? Honor yourself. You want peace? Detach from outcome. You want love? Start by returning to your own center, and let anyone unwilling to meet you there walk away. The dance ends the moment you stop dancing. The game dissolves the moment you stop playing, because control, at its root, requires participation. But when you no longer seek to be controlled, when you no longer trade authenticity for comfort, You become sovereign. That is what many fear. Not your dominance, but your refusal to be dominated. You are not a puppet. You are not a performer. You are not a mirror to reflect others' worth. You are a man. And your value does not fluctuate with another's approval. It is rooted in silence, forged in solitude, proven in your stillness. So ask yourself, where am I still dancing for affection? What part of me fears losing love more than losing myself? Can I be rejected and still remain whole? These are difficult questions, but they are the questions that lead you home, to the place where love is no longer a transaction, where connection is not dependency, where power is no longer a game, where you are no longer the one being played. Not all walls are built from fear. Some are built from love. Love of self, love of peace, love of truth. We're taught that to love is to merge, to open fully, to say yes, to give without limit, without question, without pause. But this is not love. This is abandonment, beautifully packaged, sweetly spoken, socially accepted. And the cost? You disappear slowly, not in one moment, but in 1,000 quiet surrenders. Boundaries are not the opposite of love. They are its form. They are the shape that love must take to remain real, to remain human, to remain yours. Ask yourself, have you confused surrender with sacrifice? Have you mistaken being agreeable for being loved? Have you thought that silence was strength when in truth it was fear? There is a common lie that the more you give, the more you will be cherished. But human nature does not work this way. What is endless is not valued. What is always available is not respected. What bends too easily is mistaken for weakness. Schopenhauer, cold as he may seem to some, once wrote, "Compassion is the basis of morality." But compassion in its highest form includes self-respect. To allow yourself to be used, to be reshaped, erased, controlled, is not compassion. It is self-erasure. And if you erase yourself for love, you'll only attract those who feed on absence. Look closely. You say yes when you want to say no. You apologize for being honest. You tolerate mood swings, cold silences, emotional games. You walk on eggshells to avoid triggering abandonment. This isn't love. This is fear disguised as devotion. So why do we do it? Because we fear being alone. Because we fear confrontation. Because we learned, somewhere along the way, that love means losing ourselves. But real love does not require the loss of self. It demands the opposite. It requires presence, clarity, boundaries. A boundary says, I love you, but not at the expense of my truth. I care for you, but I will not abandon myself to keep your comfort. I see you, but I will not disappear so you can feel big. This is not arrogance. It's alignment. You see, boundaries are invitations. They invite others to meet you at your level of self-respect. They reveal who is willing to honor the real you, not the version you perform to feel safe. And yes, some will leave. Some will push against the boundary. Some will call you cold, distant, selfish. Let them. Let anyone unwilling to respect your space reveal themselves early. It is a gift, because what you lose in approval, you gain in peace. What you lose in shallow connection, you gain in self-trust. And once you trust yourself, once your yes means yes and your no means no, you become unshakable. There's a reason some women do not want you to learn this, not because they are evil, but because your boundaries remove their emotional leverage. Because they can no longer use guilt, they can no longer threaten withdrawal, they can no longer shape you with silence. You become sovereign. And in a world addicted to emotional control, sovereignty is seen as rebellion. But it is not rebellion, it is return. Return to your truth. Return to your rhythm. Return to your value. There is power in being misunderstood. There is power in not explaining yourself to keep someone close. There is power in watching someone walk away and not following. Because love is not control. Love is not testing limits. Love is not shrinking someone into a box you can manage. Love, real love, is meeting another at the intersection of truth and trust. And that begins with you. So here is the quiet revolution. Begin saying what you mean. Begin leaving when your soul says, This is no longer safe. Begin noticing the small moments when you feel your spine weaken, and choose instead to stand tall. You will lose some people, but the ones who remain, they will love you for who you actually are, not who you became to keep their approval. And you will feel the difference. A calm in your chest, a clarity in your step, a respect in your reflection. Boundaries are not barriers to intimacy. They are the gateway to it, because only when two people stand in their own full truth can real connection begin. So ask yourself now, where have I confused love with tolerance? Where do I need to reclaim my no? Where has my silence protected others but wounded me? These questions are not easy, but they are sacred. They invite you to become someone new, not harder, not colder, but clearer. A man who does not perform, a man who does not beg, a man who does not barter his soul for closeness, a man who honors his space and invites others to meet him there. That is love. That is strength. That is you, returning to yourself. There is a kind of power no one can give you, and no one can take. It is the power of knowing who you are, even when the world misunderstands you, even when she leaves, even when your silence is met with blame. This power is not loud, it does not boast, it does not dominate, it simply is. It is the weight in your words, the steadiness in your gaze, the refusal to abandon yourself in the face of pressure. This is sovereignty, not over others, but over your inner world. Because the deepest prison is not physical, it's emotional. It's the prison of needing constant affirmation to feel worthy. It's the cage built from the opinions of others, from the moods of those we love. And this is where most men live, silently, obediently, disguising their compliance as kindness while dying inside. But you are awakening. You're beginning to see that peace is not found in being liked. It's found in being whole. And wholeness requires boundaries. It requires solitude. It requires moments of discomfort where you hold your ground. Even as the people you love ask you to betray yourself, there is no greater test, because everything in you wants harmony, wants closeness, wants to be seen as good. But here's the paradox. When you sell your truth for harmony, you get neither. You lose yourself, and she loses respect for you. Women may not say it aloud, but they feel it. They feel when a man is emotionally porous, when he's easily swayed, when his need for connection outweighs his commitment to truth. And while they may tolerate him, they will not trust him, not truly, not deeply. Because at her core, a woman wants to feel a man's center. She wants to feel that no matter how wild her emotions, how sharp her tests, how deep her storms, he remains. Not by force, not by control, but by presence. Presence that comes from inner sovereignty. Presence that cannot be bought, guilted, or seduced. This is the man she cannot shake. This is the man she respects. And this is the man most feared by those who rely on emotional leverage. Because when you are sovereign, you cannot be manipulated by attention, sex, praise, or withdrawal. You are no longer a boy chasing affection. You are a man embodying essence. So what does sovereignty look like? It looks like space between feeling and reaction. It looks like choosing your response instead of spilling emotion. It looks like honoring your values, even when it's inconvenient. It looks like being okay alone, truly okay. Because until you are, you will always be controlled by the fear of rejection. And that fear, it makes you moldable, predictable, controllable. You think you're being loving, but what you are is afraid. Afraid to be left, afraid to be judged, afraid to lose the illusion of connection. But here's the truth. You cannot lose what's meant for your soul. You can only lose what you were never meant to keep. So ask yourself, what am I still clinging to out of fear? Where have I handed over my emotional power in exchange for validation? Who do I become when I no longer need to be chosen? Because that man, the one who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't perform, that man is free. And freedom is not found in defiance. It's found in discipline, in emotional sobriety, in the ability to feel everything and still stand still. Schopenhauer knew this when he said, "A man can do what he wants, but not want what he wants." True freedom lies not in chasing every want, but in mastering the source of the wanting. And most of our wants, for love, validation, control, come from wounds. Until we face the wound, the want will own us. But once you see it clearly, once you feel it fully, once you stop blaming others for it, you can begin to choose. Not from need, but from clarity. You no longer need her to respond a certain way. You no longer need to be seen a certain way. You no longer need to play the emotional chess game of who cares less, who texts first, who holds the power. Because you've returned to the throne, the one inside your chest, the one that no woman, no parent, no culture ever gave you, because it was never theirs to give. It was always yours. Sovereignty is not the absence of emotion. It is the full integration of it. You feel it all, and you do not flinch. You want love, but you do not beg. You are open, but not empty. You are kind, but not compliant. You are present, but unmoved by chaos. This is the man who cannot be manipulated. This is the man who does not confuse surrender with submission. This is the man women fear and crave. Because in a world of noise, you are silence. In a world of masks, you are essence. In a world of boys needing mothers, you are a man who fathers himself. And that is everything.